Watchers in the Fourth Dimension.
I am impressed as ever by your devotion to efficiency.
I have returned.
Hello and welcome to a bonus episode of Watchers in the Fourth Dimension. I'm Anthony.
I'm Diana.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Reilly.
And this episode, we will be presenting to you our customary season-capping Big Finish bonus episode. And we are once again joined by the absolutely fantastic Diana Burney. Welcome back to the show, Diana.
My pleasure.
All right, for this iteration of our Big Finish specials, we will be talking about the romance of crime. And some very quick behind-the-scenes information here. This one was originally published as an original novel as part of the Virgin Missing Adventures range back in 1995. It was originally written by Gareth Roberts, who would go on to write for the actual TV show, contributing scripts for The Shakespeare Code, The Unicorn and the Wasp, The Lodger, and Closing Time. He also co-wrote Planet of the Dead with Russell T Davies and The Caretaker with Stephen Moffat. More recently, he's been cancelled for his tirades on Twitter about gender identity. Quite the fall from grace. Anyway, in 2012, Big Finish started adapting some of those novels to audio, and this particular one was the third one released all the way back in January 2015, so almost 10 years ago, which makes me feel kind of old now. For audio, it was adapted by John Dorney, who has been enormously prolific in writing and acting for Big Finish, and in this he actually also portrays Eddie Nisbet and voices the Ogrons. And it was directed by Big Finish executive producer and voice of the Daleks himself, Nick Briggs. Is there anything that his fingerprints aren't on? Music and sound design was handled by Howard Carter, whose work we previously heard last season when we did the Antimatter. And the producer was David Richardson, who has been a long-time producer for Big Finish. And so with that, let's jump into talking about it. And Julie, I know you're going to want to start with the sound design.
I mean, yet again, the sound design is excellent because it's Big Finish. There's actually one thing, I know we usually kind of go a little bit in order, but can I mention the squish sound that was made when the one person died? And Reilly, how did that make you feel?
Actually, that wasn't so bad. I guess I'm more of a visual person. It didn't bother me. I found it quite humorous because I guess when I imagined it, I imagined something very cartoonish, not anything too grotesque.
Yeah, same.
Well, let's talk about the plot here. I know often we tend to go chronologically by part, but I think with the Big Finish ones recently, we've tended to just go thematically. So I'm not even going to try and force a chronological discussion on this one. Let's just go with the flow here.
You know, I tried to go with the flow once.
Just once?
Just once, and I tell you, it takes a lot out of you. Made me have to lose my wife and kids.
What?
I could not. Every time. That man needs a therapist so bad.
And he chose the worst therapist in K9, who has no empathy whatsoever and did not care.
Yeah, when they started adding the music in, I was just like, all right, I get it. Please stop.
So, plot, here we go. This thing is way too long. I'm gonna go right out there and say it. The amount of exposition and world building that we had to do was too much for an audio. And I wanted to claw my eyes out sometimes. I'm sorry, everyone.
That must be the novel. That's the issue.
I was going to say, adapting a novel for audio, I think probably requires a lot of that. We will probably do another Big Finish special at some point with one of the others from this range. So it'd be interesting to kind of compare and contrast.
That's where I struggled a lot with, especially in the beginning as we're setting up all of this. It screamed to me that it was a novel adaptation. It's almost like they just lifted the conversations from the novel instead of adding any context to it for a radio drama. They didn't use names too much, to the extent that Romana and the Doctor are playing their little game, and I didn't even realize it was them until K9 started talking.
Yeah.
The transitions were poor for a radio piece. That's the struggle I had with it the whole time.
And it was very difficult to really piece together what was happening, what was important. The whole beginning piece, I actually don't know how that beginning piece really fits in because it's so convoluted towards the end of, oh, hey, here's all this setup that I did in this 10-second thing that we had at the very beginning.
Yeah, it's like we start off with someone getting flattened with an enormous amount of setup to get there. And then we jump to someone being set up in court for a drunken brawl that he's going to be executed for through particle dispersion. Then we cut to another woman who's due to be executed, and she's having her portrait painted. And all of this matters to the plot, but at the beginning, it's not particularly interesting.
All of those things happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels so separated that I completely forgot that it did.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you just didn't know, especially in the first part, they just didn't transition between scenes well. You didn't know when one scene was over and the next one started. At least in the other parts, I think that they added like footsteps and, squelching noises and other sound design that helped with those transitions. But in the beginning one, I just didn't even know where we were.
Was there time difference in all of this? And especially one of them, honestly, that probably happened before the other ones. If I'm trying to actually plot out what those different pieces were, I don't know. It just seemed very convoluted to me. Also, there's just some things here that just don't make any sort of sense.
Yeah.
Like, I'm able to replicate myself based off this stuff that's used as piping. What the fuck? What?
Yeah, it probably works better in prose.
Yeah, it was missing a lot of the paragraphs giving you descriptions.
Yeah.
That would have made this a lot better.
I hadn't read this one in novel form, but I have read some of Gareth Roberts' other work. And even though he's cancelled these days, I will give him credit. He's actually a very witty writer. So I imagine a lot of that descriptive work and a lot of that juxtaposition you get in the novel is probably lost.
Yeah, and I could hear that in the way that he wrote the Doctor and how he was playing the Doctor for the last parts. I just think the first part was overall very weak because I didn't even think the voice acting was great for it, the first part.
I do want to say, poor John Leeson, speaking of the voice acting, K9 sounds old. And I realized that this was almost 40 years after he started being K9, but it comes across on audio and it made me kind of sad.
It wasn't so bad, in my opinion, especially compared to some of the other stuff and nonsense. And it's better than Reilly. So there's that.
Very quickly, just while we're talking about the voice acting, I know in some of the feedback we've had as we've been going through season 17, and there have been discussions amongst people who follow us on social media about Mary Tam versus Lalla Ward. And there's been some commentary about Lalla Ward sounding more condescending on audio. I definitely got that here.
So I am Romana 1 fangirl.
Yes.
One of the most disappointing things in the whole entirety of Doctor Who is when she goes from 1 to 2. And I feel like it sounds like Lalla Ward is directly reading from the script the whole time. I don't necessarily think she sounds like she's
Trying.
Yeah. I feel like everybody's weak in part 1, but we eventually start hearing 4 come out of the Doctor through the end, where he's really getting into character and really settling into the Doctor's voice and the Doctor's personality through the script. And Lalla Ward always sounds like she's doing the table read.
Yeah, I definitely get that with condescension in there.
Mm-hmm.
Probably doesn't help that her and Tom won't record together.
Obviously.
Is Lalla Ward going to be at Gallifrey 1 this year?
I don't think so.
Okay, then I agree with both of you. Yeah, she did not sound great in this audio.
I'm so dead.
I mean, she could still get added to the guest list, but so far she's not on it.
Yeah, I don't particularly care for her. I think there was too many characters, to be perfectly honest, for this type of thing. Because I kept on getting confused on Spigot versus
and
Stokes.
Oh, man, you're not kidding.
Like, why? Really? And then what's the guy's name that started with the N?
Well, the two Nisbet brothers,
Yeah, the Nisbets.
Charlie and Eddie.
Too many things got lost in there. And then we just have the one lady, Margot, who doesn't get to be Margot because everything is terrible. And I couldn't remember who was who. I couldn't remember who was doing what. I don't remember whose side who was on, who was double-crossing who was double-crossing who was double-crossing who. Ooh.
The characters I sort of got, because they're all kind of pastiches. So you have Stokes, whose first name is Menlove, by the way, which is hilarious for a kind of camp, effete, art gallery artist type person. He was actually played by Michael Troughton.
Oh.
Huh.
Yeah. Then Spigot was they tried to portray him as kind of the moody detective, almost in the mold of like Dick Tracy or something. And it doesn't quite work with that softly northern British accent that he had. You kind of need that New York.
Well, also, if we're going to have noir just all of a sudden thrown in, how about we just leave that for a noir story?
Yeah. And then the Nisbet brothers were such a clear play on the Kray twins, who were East London gangsters in the 60s, that it was painful. Right down to the comment of, when the firm was in its prime, the streets were safe. It reminds me of comments that my grandmother used to say that, oh, when the Krays ran the East End, you didn't get old ladies getting knocked down in the streets. That is such a fallacy.
I love that.
Yeah. But, you know, then the Doctor drops the whole romance of crime title at that point, and he's basically sending the whole thing up. But all of these characters are kind of archetypes. I was able to distinguish them because of that. I didn't particularly care about Pierpoint.
Also, I didn't realize that was just a name. I was like, maybe this is some weird title that the man has. No, okay, that is a name.
I had that problem too.
Pierpoint seems superfluous to the story, in my opinion. I think we have enough villains.
Again, you can tell that this was a novel because the cast is just too big and there are, as Julie says, just too many characters. Again, works in a novel.
Yes, because in a novel, you have time to meet everybody. There's descriptions of everybody. Here's how everyone is related. Because honestly, it took me a long time to even figure out that they were brothers.
I thought there was only one of them for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuck between an audio drama and an audio book.
Very much so. Yeah. It needed the stage directions real bad. It was just that thing where and everybody kept swapping who they were scene partners with. And so I never knew who's in the room with who. We went from poor Margot being possessed to Romana. And when did that happen? When did that happen?
I missed that too.
Yeah. K9's like, mistress. And I'm like, what is wrong?
I was wondering why she suddenly sounded like Romana.
Sure.
It suddenly sounds like Romana. What's going on? And then eventually, oh yeah, you possessed Romana. Wait, when did that happen?
Yeah. And what happened to Margot? Did she disintegrate? What happened to her?
I'm glad that's not just me that missed that. The fact that, Reilly, did you miss that too?
No, I actually do remember the discussion. Funny thing is I don't know how we got to that point. I do remember her being concerned about being, turned in or controlled or what do you want to say, but the whole how it got shifted to her is that's a bit.
So 4 out of 4 of us completely missed that. Was it there? Who knows? If it was, it clearly wasn't well done.
Yeah, because they went real hardline with it when she's trying to get the doctor to do it. She blatantly says, "Wear my face," which is a terrifying sentence.
Yeah, that was very, very dark.
Might have been one of the best parts of this whole thing.
For sure, especially because I visually imagined them walking around with the Jim Carrey mask. That was just what the imagery was in my head the whole time. Was the wooden one, not even when it turns into the green skin, but just full wooden mask the whole time that was sucking into their face.
At first I would think wood, and then they said it was something out of pipes, and then I was just PVC pipe, so white plastic.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. The pipe description did not change the fact that it was definitely made out of wood in my headcanon.
At the very end, when Zeus becomes the whole planet, all I could think of was Mr. Frundles from Rick and Morty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I also had this problem with her just calling people normals the whole time.
Kill all the normals. Kill all normals.
All normals.
I don't know why it rubbed me the wrong way so much, but I really disliked it.
You feel like you're being discriminated against, Julie.
It's not even just that. First off, define normal. Okay, normal is just a human being, so just why don't you say kill all humans? But then I think there was the whole mutation thing that was mentioned. And I'm like, why are we now identifying that there are some mutated human beings? Mm-hmm. Why add that layer to this whole story?
Springing off of that, Julie, did you catch that line that the doctor said about the Neanderthals?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I did catch that.
Okay, I'm going to do a horrible job paraphrasing because when I heard it, even I went, all right, that's a bit much. And I said, you know who's going to really hate this? Julie will.
Oh.
In which he does his normal thing where he gets all high and mighty over human beings. And then he literally says something to the effect of how the Neanderthals were better in some sort of manner.
No. Yeah.
That is utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. Bad writing. I'm all fine with if you want to criticize human beings. Please.
Yes.
There's a lot to criticize. But seriously, Neanderthals? Come on. No way. Nope.
Hey, wait, hold on. Hold on a second. Neanderthals are pretty cool, though. And he's not, like, terribly wrong, but they definitely didn't know that then. And there was a lot of Neanderthal slander in this story, and I was just glad that the doctor stood up for them a little bit.
Okay, can I talk about the Ogrons here for a second?
Yes.
The stars of the entire show, in my opinion.
I do not remember them being that stupid.
Oh, they definitely were.
I don't remember it being that bad.
It maybe is dialed up a little more here for comedy, but they were pretty stupid in the show.
I agree with Julie. They were stupid when we first watched them, and we joked so much about that and really went over the top with it that I kind of wonder if we weren't alone with that and that other parts of Doctor Who fandom felt the same way. So then when this was performed, that became part of the collective of the fandom.
I think, Reilly, you're touching on an excellent point there because, yes, I remember them being dumb, but I don't remember them being, like, officially dumb. And I think there is a difference there.
It does make for some absolute comedy gold in this story,
it's great. Though. It kept me going.
The jelly baby scene, brilliant.
That was so cute.
Everybody hates us, and the Ogron being like, well, I like you.
And remember, everyone, that day, Nesbit was amazed to discover that when the Ogron was saying, I hate you, what he really meant was, I love you.
The guest suite gag, I like that too.
Yeah. That was when the story started actually picking up, was when they started adding the Ogrons' little sides in.
Oh, that was, like I said, star of the show for me. It really started taking off there.
They didn't show up until the part 2 cliffhanger, so halfway in,
Yes, that sounds about right.
Show, finally show up and the whole thing picks up.
Yeah.
I, first off, was not expecting the Ogron, and I didn't really look at the little thumbnail picture, so I was not really expecting it. So I was like, interesting choice. That's the one that we're going to bring in. And they did do a lot of the whole, like, this way, no, that way deal. And I'm like, that bit is overplayed. So maybe, like, stick away from that one. Do others. One thing I wanted to comment on that's not quite Ogrons. So when K9 comes back online, he's, like, charged back up again. And this guy, like, insults him. And then I hear, like, him charging up, and I was like, yeah, do it, K9. And then it was a massive explosion.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe that's not that be some man's dick.
Yeah, that was also a high point. Definitely. That is something about it that I will give this audio drama a lot of credit for, is that I really did enjoy the humor of it. And it did, at one point, made me wonder whether it was, as we would say, taking the piss. And that is the whole scene about my steak meal.
Oh, no, that was definitely taking the piss.
Yeah.
Hilarious. And it stuck with me, but completely ridiculous.
I mean, to an extent, I think that was part of the parody of the Krays, in that they were so kind of all-powerful at one point in the East End. They literally could stop conversations because they were like, I'm finishing my steak dinner. So I do think it was taking it a little further into parody, but equally, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some reference to real-life events in that.
I understand. As the Ogrons say, food good.
Food good.
Food is good. I think one of the biggest questions I have for all of you is, does this effectively kind of capture the atmosphere of season 17?
Hell if I know.
Oh, I don't think so.
This feels like it could be inputted most anywhere.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like it's any given season.
Aside from Romana 2.
Right.
Right.
Outside of Romana 2, it just feels like Hey, this is a story.
Yeah, I had to look up where it slotted in.
Interesting. So a lot of people who have listened to this, I think, who have had knowledge that this should be season 17, frequently say things like, Gareth Roberts really understands the vibe of the season.
I didn't realize that the season had a vibe.
Well, based on our ratings, it's not a good vibe.
It's a vibe of Tom's ego running out of control and the show just becoming ridiculous.
I agree with the ridiculous part. If that's the tone, I can see that with this audio drama, but...
Yeah, I think that has to be it, doesn't it? Because otherwise you can't really say it has a vibe beyond that. Sounds like Big Finish.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. Also, did someone recommend this to us, or did you just pull this out of a hat?
So here's what I did. Given that we have had extensive commentary about how I keep choosing shit ones for you all, I looked at the ones that are supposedly at the end of season 17 and went and looked at a few fan reviews. And I had listened to this before, but it was 10 years ago and I couldn't really remember it. And lots of the fan reviews of this are very, very good. So I thought, oh, this sounds like a good one for us to do. That's how we landed here. And it turns out all four of us, it wasn't our favorite.
No. It's pretty mid.
That
I've
might
heard
be generous.
worse.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just, could have done with a little bit more editing, probably.
Yep, exactly.
And just some putting them in the booth together would probably work.
Oh, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Even if we're not liking each other, it's still you can just tell nobody's in the room with each other.
Well, from what I've heard, Tom Baker and Lala Ward haven't spoken since basically the 1980s.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But then maybe this isn't the stories to be doing audio versions of,
Well, if any of you are aching for some more of Men Love Stokes, he does return in a follow-up to this called The Well-Mannered War, also written by Gareth Roberts, also originally a novel, also with way too big cast.
Honestly, once I was over how he presents his little skeezy vibe, I liked him well enough. He was a consistently good character. He's well voice acted. He's just, gross.
Yeah, the way he was sleazing over Romana, my skin was crawling.
No, that was not pleasant.
I mean, try that in the modern workplace and you'll very quickly get a call from HR, I think.
I was like, this is not a modern character. This would not fly today.
The follow-up does actually have, in addition to Michael Troughton, has David Troughton as the Black Guardian in it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Black Guardian. Okay.
There's some unnecessary fan wank for you. All right. Well, I think we've probably exhausted the conversation on this one.
Bless its heart.
Let's go ahead and give it a completely arbitrary rating that I'm not going to keep track of in any form of spreadsheet. And we will start with Reilly.
Oh, geez. I don't know. The production's good. It is, like I said previously, stuck between being a audio drama or an audio book. It's based on a novel. I really enjoyed the Nesbits. I thought they were hilarious. I enjoyed many of the characters actually for humorous reasons. I just think there's too much going on. It's too long. They could have cut off some of the characters. Just tighten it up a little bit. Performances are all right. Soundscape, good. A bit confusing because of the editing issue and it being too long. So I'm just gonna, I'm gonna give it 6 steak meals out of 10.
All right, let's go with Diana next.
I don't dislike it, but I just wasn't as taken with it. Just with the editing and how it translates into audio, I was dissatisfied with how long it took me to figure out how many characters there were and if there was any distinct ones. So I'm thinking I'm going to give it let's say 5 pipewood masks out of 10.
Okay, Julie.
I mean, I agree a lot with what Diana has said, and Reilly as well, I suppose. I thought it was very padded, a lot of confusing things going on. The fact that I didn't know that there were brothers until one of them was like, no, brother, is problematic, to say the least.
The last 15 minutes.
No, it's so bad. Yeah, okay, so I'm not going to belabor this. However, I'm going to do something weird because since you're not going to be tracking these points, I can for once do something very bizarre.
Ooh.
I'm going to give the first 2 episodes a 4.5, and I will give the second 2 episodes a 6.
Okay.
Ooh, change my arbitrary score to that.
Oh, okay. Didn't know we were doing that.
And the metric is K9 beating the Doctor at board games out of 10.
Ooh.
Oh, I like that.
All right. Well, I definitely agree with the general consensus. The production, as always, is good. Some of the voice work is good. I did really enjoy the Nisbet brothers. I thought that whole pastiche of the Kray twins really worked for me, maybe just because I'm a Londoner and I know the history there. I do completely agree. The first 2 parts dragged, and I listened to this in 2 sets of 2. So parts 1 and 2, and then parts 3 and 4. And just the level of enjoyment between those 2 sessions was radically different. And yeah, just to go back to where we were, the Ogrons showing up, huge boost to this. I'm not sure I have a huge amount to say beyond that. I think everyone else has done a pretty good job of summing this up. So I think I'm in agreement that the first 2 episodes are probably a 4.
Yes!
Second 2, probably like a 7. And I'm going to say sleazy artists.
Yes.
Well, that is the end of the episode. We will be back next time with a regular episode as we kick off season 18 with the Leisure Hive. However, do listen out for a little announcement sometime in the next week. We will have something to let you all know. But for now, as always, thank you so very much for listening. And of course, as always, have a good one. You have been listening to Watchers in the Fourth Dimension with Julie Philippek, Reilly Schreck, Diana Burney, and myself, Anthony Williams. This bonus episode, Wear My Face, was recorded on Wednesday the 23rd of October 2024. If this is your first time listening in, all of our previous episodes are available through your favorite podcasting app. You can interact with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Watchers4D, and you can also email us at watchers4d@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, please do subscribe and leave us a review or rating on your favorite podcasting app. All of those things really do help the show. And always remember, a good novel may not necessarily become a good audio play.